Forced into a poverty survival game where the winner takes home a 10 million grand prize. But the catch is, you only have 50 bucks to survive for 7 days. As a seasoned pro at being broke, I spotted a loophole the second I saw the rules. Soon after, a broadcast blared. Welcome, 100 contestants, to the poverty challenge. You start with 50 bucks, and the goal is to survive 7 days. The winner takes the 10 million prize all for themselves. Overspend or leave the game zone and you're out. Plus you'll be saddled with a 10 million debt. Any cowards want to quit now? As the announcement ended, someone in the crowd shouted back, "Are you kidding? I could survive 7 days just drinking water." A chubby guy next to me chimed in. 50 bucks for buns and pickles could last a month. Go big or go home. Only a fool would quit. The crowd buzzed with blind excitement. Great. Once the game starts, no one can quit. 100 players deployed. Welcome to the airport terminal, and good luck. With a flash of white light, I found myself in a modern airport. The terminal stretched on forever, with people bustling about. It was impossible to tell who was a player and who was an NPC. My game account showed my 50 bucks starting balance. At the same time, 3 bars appeared on my interface: hunger, thirst, and energy. All were full for now. I saw a convenience store across the way and headed over to check the prices. As I reached the fridge, a tearful shout rang out. "What the hell? 15 bucks for a bottle of water? That's robbery." I walked over, scanned the shelves, and my heart sank. A small cake is 53. A Meiji bar is 40. Buns are 10 each. And even the cheapest pack of soda crackers is 18. With a daily budget of 7 bucks, I can't even afford half a bottle of water. I sighed. The game isn't here to be charitable, and I knew it wouldn't be this easy. Other players swarmed the store, their faces filled with shock and panic. The chubby guy pulled me aside and said, "Number 66, I'm player 44. Call me shameless. Let's team up. If anyone gives you trouble, I'll take them on." He then showed off some grappling moves, looking pretty agile. But until I figured out the rules, I didn't want to ally with anyone. So I politely declined and left the store alone. After all, my top priority right now is finding free water. I rushed to the restroom area and found a water dispenser. I also managed to find 2 discarded water bottles nearby. After cleaning them out, I filled both bottles to the brim. Water situation handled. Cost, 0. Next up, energy. I spotted a coffee shop. Sugar packets, creamer, and brown sugar were all lined up. After all, sugar is a crucial energy source. These are lifesavers for preventing low blood sugar in an emergency. I walked over with a straight face, acting as natural as if I were grabbing something from home. A dozen sugar packets and a few creamers slid right into my pocket. The whole thing took less than 2 seconds, and then I just strolled out. Once I hit a quiet corner, I tore open 2 packets and dumped them straight into my mouth. The sweetness exploded instantly, giving me a fake sense of satisfaction. Sugar secured for $0. But the airport AC felt like a walk-in freezer. Maybe the system did it on purpose. The colder it is, the faster you burn energy. My thin clothes couldn't block the chill, so I had to keep moving to stay warm. That's when I spotted a blanket in the trash, tossed by someone getting off a flight. It smelled a bit off, but it would keep me warm. As time dragged on, the hunger started hitting harder. By 8 p.m., I wandered over to a bakery. The unsold bread in the display case smelled absolutely amazing. My sharp broke guy intuition told me it was time for the discount. A $30 loaf of toast was now down to $15. But that's not fast enough. It could go lower, maybe even free. Every dollar saved is a chance to survive. So I sat on a bench across from the shop and rested with my eyes half closed. Suddenly, 20 or 30 people swarmed in from everywhere, rushing the bakery and crowding the tiny entrance. In the chaos, I saw people waving cash and others just grabbing bread right off the shelves. The clerk panicked, shouting, "Line up! Line up!" But it was useless. In just a few minutes, every discounted loaf and toast was wiped out. Are you sure? The ones who scored looked like they'd just survived a disaster. The ones who missed out were beating their chests in despair. The air was filled with the cursing and desperate sighs of other players. My hunger meter had dropped 70% by now, so I took a deep breath to suppress the stomach cramps. I looked away from the chaos and up at the massive flight information screen. The red flight statuses kept scrolling. It was time to show what I'm really made of. In this airport, players can go anywhere, so you can reach the gates even without a ticket. I scanned the big screen and locked onto a few delayed flights, highlighted in bold red. My targets were the ones delayed for over 6 hours. Once I spotted my mark, I marched straight toward the gate. A small crowd had already gathered, and the air was thick with frustration and sweat. Gate 2 was delayed by 8 hours, and the stranded passengers had the young ground staff cornered. Their faces were beet red, and they were practically spitting in her face. "Is your airline useless? My kid is crying from hunger. Are you going to do something? I want my compensation right now." The girl's voice was drowned out, and she looked like she was about to burst into tears. I realized this was my chance, so I shoved my way to the center and stood right in front of her. "Quiet!" I yelled at the top of my lungs. The crowd was stunned into silence by the sudden outburst. I pointed at the mother holding her crying child and shouted to everyone, "Look! Just look at this poor kid. Does screaming our heads off make the plane fly any faster? The airline is in the wrong, and they need to take responsibility. But what do we actually need right now? Food, a place to rest, and energy to keep fighting them." I turned to the overwhelmed staff member and spoke rapidly. "Everyone's worked up. You need to calm them down now. Hand out meal and hotel vouchers immediately so they can eat and settle in. Can you handle the fallout if this gets any worse?" The girl defended herself. "I've been telling them. They can have the vouchers, but they won't listen." She then shouted to the crowd, "Everyone line up. Get your vouchers with your boarding passes. You're still worried about procedure?" I cut her off, pointing at the mom. Look at her. She's been holding her kid for 8 hours, and you want her to wait in line? I turned to the mom and said, "Ma'am, give me your boarding pass. I'll get it for you." I reached out with authority, and she handed it over like I was her lifeline. Once someone took the lead, the effect was instant. Others with kids, seniors, or those who looked exhausted started shoving their boarding passes at me too. "Here, take mine too." Suddenly, I had a dozen boarding passes in my hand. I turned to the staffer, shoved the passes toward her, and lowered my voice. "Hurry up. Solve the urgent cases first. Better than ending up on the news, right? Throw in a couple extra vouchers. I'll keep these parents quiet, and everyone gets a way out." She looked at me with gratitude and started typing away on her machine. She quickly pulled out a stack of meal vouchers, counted out the ones matching my boarding pass, then slipped 2 extra ones into the pile and handed them to me with a look of gratitude. My heart was racing, but I kept a straight face. "These are yours. Go get the baby something to eat. Here you go, sir." I quickly handed out the right vouchers and boarding passes. Finally, I tucked the 2 extra vouchers into my inner pocket and shouted to the crowd, "Everyone, go get your food and rest up. Save your energy. We'll settle the score with them later." While everyone was distracted by the food, I slipped through the crowd like an eel and vanished into the busy terminal hallway. To survive this game, you've got to be better at finding loopholes than the rest. Just as I left the waiting area, I ran into Shameless again. He gave me a goofy grin and said, "Number 66, I saw what you're capable of. You were negotiating like a total boss back there. You sure you don't want to team up? We might need to look out for each other later on." As he spoke, I was shocked to see he'd already picked up 4 more players in just one day. I still turned him down. I used my voucher to grab a meal, and my hunger meter finally hit full. But exhaustion hit me like a tidal wave. My energy level had already dropped below 50%. It was 11 p.m. now. The airport was thinning out. Most shops were closing, and the dim lighting made it impossible to keep my eyes open. A weird, creepy vibe started to settle in, and I knew I had to find a place to crash. But the chairs in the terminal all had armrests, so there was no way to lie down. One young player, clearly at his limit, wrapped himself in a thin jacket and curled up on the floor to sleep. Not even 2 minutes later, a bright light hit his face. "Get up! No lying down here," the guard barked, completely emotionless. "Can't get up and down."
到了机场大门外，游戏公屏上爆出广播：
Player 3 has been eliminated for leaving the game zone. Debt, 10 million. Right after that, players in other areas started getting eliminated the same way. The game was using fatigue and the cold to drain the last bit of sanity out of us. My energy was critically low, so to avoid getting eliminated, I threw my ragged blanket over myself and dozed off right there in the chair. The sunrise the next day reminded us that we'd only been in the game for 1 day. My energy barely climbed back to 75%, but my hunger meter had already dropped to 50% again. I still had 1 voucher left, but I wasn't in a rush. I took a sip of cold water and ate 2 packs of sugar. As I headed to the departure hall to hunt for resources, a player suddenly lunged forward and snatched a hot dog out of a kid's hand. The kid started bawling. The guards swarmed in, surrounded the guy, and dragged him off to a police car outside. Then the announcement blared. Player 25 has been eliminated for stealing NPC food and removed from the airport. Debt, 10 million. I realized something. In this airport, you can't do anything that draws the guards' attention. But the airport was acting weird today. Not a single flight was delayed. I guess the system must have patched the loophole I was using. I spent the day wandering the terminal like a regular traveler, hitting up every shop with free samples. Of course, I'd just eat and run. I'd watch the clerks' faces while snacking, and as soon as they caught on, I'd bolt. That's how I scraped by until nightfall. I used my remaining meal vouchers for dinner to top off my hunger bar. My energy levels were even lower today, so getting some rest was non-negotiable. But tonight, I wasn't about to settle for a seat. I slipped into a dim side hallway. At the end of the hall was a gold mine I'd spotted earlier, an abandoned utility room with the door left ajar. It was packed with junk, but once the door was shut, it was my own private sanctuary. I had just stepped inside and hadn't even managed to pull the door shut yet. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the door was kicked wide open.